Welcome to the world of 3D printed fashion. Earrings, bracelets, necklaces, you name it, have all been commonly designed and shared since 3D printers have become widely available to the public. Why stop there though? Why not make something bigger? And so today, I'll be showing you the process I took to design, prototype, and fabricate my latest 3D printed purse. So before I show you my newest purse, let's look at some of the purses I've been making over the years. I've been 3D printing purses since the 9th grade, and my first 3D printed purse was a rigid PLA block with a 3D printed chain that broke after the first 30 minutes of use. So yeah, there was a lot to improve on. On my next iteration, I used TPU, which is a flexible 3D printing filament around 60A shore hardness that allows you to make squishy things like shoes or imitation leather in this case. This purse was miles ahead of my old one, and to make it, I found a purse template online and converted it into a DXF, then STL file for printing. I sewed the pieces together and used magnets for the closing mechanism. This purse worked just fine, but it was much too small to fit my phone. My penultimate purse was the first purse I ever painted, and the first purse I fully designed. It was also printed in TPU and stitched together. This purse also had magnets for its closing mechanism, which worked specifically only when I was not wearing the purse. So, for this next purse, I had 3 goals in mind. Firstly, I wanted it to be entirely TPU, so no thread, no super glue, no hot glue, and no magnets. Next, I wanted it to be the biggest purse I've ever made, to challenge my ability to make big prints. And finally, it had to be sturdy. I wanted to use my purse making experience to make something of the same quality you would expect from a store as a paying customer. So, no part of it should break within reasonable use. So, when I designed this purse, I kind of imagined a box made of a leather-like material. This purse was designed in Fusion 360. I based the measurements off the size of my phone, so it's big enough to fit in both horizontally and vertically, as you can see here. So, how was I going to get the sides to fold over at 90 degrees like that? Well, the answer was triangles. Or rather, triangular grooves. So, I designed this purse with grooves at each section of the purse in the form of 45, 45, 90 right triangles, such that when folded over, the sides would create 90-degree angles with one another. To test out these grooves, I made a PLA prototype. This prototype was scaled down 5 times though, so that it could fit in my print bed. And as you can see here, those grooves worked out pretty well. To determine the placement of the stitching, I transposed these 2 side elements and projected the sketch of the stitching onto the second element from the first one, as you can see here. This is when I created my second prototype, which was made from TPU. And since it was scaled down 5 times, it was much too small for the holes to come out properly, so I used a 3D pen and white TPU to connect the pieces together along the stitching. And once I was happy with that, it was time to split the purse up into 12 large sections since it was so big. Since I printed this purse with translucent green TPU, I decided to print it at a 5% honeycomb infill pattern since honeycombs create my favorite tessellation and follow the honeycomb conjecture, a theorem that states that this honeycomb pattern has the smallest possible perimeter of any shape of the same area as these hexagons. Next, I had to connect these pieces in a way that would survive a lot of stress and last a long time. So what better way to do it than with its own material? I borrowed a 3D pen from a friend and used plastic welding with the same green TPU on the inside to follow the infill pattern to increase the strength of the joint on the inside, and I used white TPU on the outside to create this cartoonish outline on the whole piece. Before stitching, I wanted to add a pocket on the inside of the purse. To do so, I printed out 2 sheets of white TPU and used the same 3D pen technique to connect them together, and then I ran a line of white TPU through the 3D pen to create this elastic band that would not only hold the pocket in place, but also stretch to allow it to hold more items. Onto the closing mechanism, I did the same thing with the pocket and ran a couple lines of green TPU through the 3D pen to create this elastic band that I put on both sides of the closing lid that would allow it to close automatically after being opened, just like any rubber band. Now, for the stitching, how was I going to get it to be completely 3D printed? Well, I ran a couple meters of TPU through that 3D printed pen to get this sort of TPU thread. I found this thread to be extremely durable and did not break a single time while stitching, And it was even so easy to stitch, in fact, that I did not use a needle to stitch this entire purse. As you can see here, I just did a classic running stitch down both sides of the purse. And I wasn't really sure how this top joint was going to hold up, so I looped the stitching once around both sides of the top joints on either end of the purse, so that even if this joint failed, the purse would at least be held up by the stitching. Finally, for the chain, I had this open hexagon file where I paused the G-code halfway through the print so that I could switch out this green TPU for white, just for the overall white and green theme. And I looped together these open hexagons and closed them with green TPU with a 3D pen. I found that this chain was extremely flexible and that the more weight that you put in the purse, the longer the chain would be, of course. So, how do you think I did? I'd call this project an overall success because I was able to make a purse that didn't fall apart so far. I did actually take this purse out for a night, and I put all of my friends' purses inside my purse, since it is so big, and it actually ended up not breaking all night. My only grievance is that the hexagonal chain was pretty sharp at its edges and it did scratch me a bit, but otherwise I would call that a success. What about you? What do you think I should make next? Please let me know in the comment section and stay curious.